Yeah. Hi, Nathan. How
Hello.
are you?
Thank you very much for inviting me today.
You're welcome. Tell me, please, what was the idea? Why you decided to run for this seat?
So the main issue is safety and security. It will be the crossover issue of the 2022 Attorney General election. And by that I mean that the issues of safety and security have gone from the best point, which is 2014, which is considered one of our safest years in terms of all the statistical measures, to 8 years later, where we have exploding violent and street crime, homelessness at an all-time high, fentanyl poisoning is probably going to kill more people in certain cities than COVID, human trafficking running amok and being unprosecuted. And so we've gone from a situation where people felt safe and secure to a question that I ask every voter, which is this: do you feel more safe and secure today in California than you have in the past 2, 4, 6, or 8 years? Almost to a person, the answer has been no. We don't feel more safe and secure today than in the past. And so that leads me to ask two follow-up questions. First, well, who got us into this mess and who's responsible for it? And second, who's going to get us out of this mess? And as far as who got us in this mess and who's responsible for it, Republicans have not held the position of the state attorney general since Dan Lundgren won it in 1994. So it's been
a real long time.
28 years ago since we won an election. And so as far as who's responsible for what's going on, it's certainly not myself. It's certainly not any Republicans, because the Democrats have not only controlled every statewide office for the last 10 plus years, they've also had a supermajority in the state legislature. In essence, they can do anything they want, and Republicans can't stop them in any way, shape, or form. So the statistics that you see today about how unsafe and unsecure our society is all laid at the hands of the people who've been running the show. As far as who's going to get us out, what I have come to the election with are experience, background, and pragmatic, common sense solutions to partner with the police rather than defund them, to basically bring a balanced approach to prosecutions. And that balanced approach is based on my having been a prosecutor, a federal prosecutor, a U.S. Assistant Attorney General back in Washington, D.C., and also a defense attorney. I've done each of those jobs.
So from both sides, you said.
From both sides. For what we see going on in Los Angeles with the DA, George Gascon, in San Francisco with the DA, Chesa Boudin, and then in Sacramento with the current Attorney General, Rob Bonta, is that they've adopted a philosophy that's not working. And the philosophy
and
is...
it was proof it didn't work.
And the statistics don't lie as far as the proof that it doesn't work. If you decide not to prosecute violent and serious felons or offenders at the front end, because you refuse to bring the charges,
right,
and then you also decide to let them out on the back end before they've served their entire sentence, it's not a shock that our society is going to get more dangerous, more safe, and more unsecure.
Nathan, you talked about statistics, but behind statistics are people who are suffering here in California, regardless, Sacramento or Los Angeles. And you told that the feeling it's not safe as before. So during 8 years, which you refer, what major events contribute not to feel this safety?
Great question, and there's two answers. A weakening of the laws and a weakening of the prosecutors. As far as the laws go, for example, Proposition 47 is the law that got passed in 2014, and it changed our felonies into misdemeanors for property crimes under $950. So all of a sudden people could steal under $950.
So they have to calculate
They literally have to calculate so they don't exceed $950. And if they calculate correctly, they can walk, not run out of a store, because the police won't arrest them. Now, why will the police not arrest them? because certain prosecutors like Gascon here in Los Angeles and Boudin in San Francisco have a blanket policy that they will not prosecute misdemeanor property crimes, which is what a property crime under $950 has turned out to be.
Right.
So you got the combination of the weaker laws, then you have the weaker prosecutors, and you've created an environment that I call the spiral of lawlessness. And by that I mean it starts with one person stealing under $950 from a CVS.
And others just...
Oh yeah. And then two people
Yeah.
stealing under $950 from a Walgreens. Then 80 people running out of a Nordstrom's. Then you have smash and grab.
And they have it like
robberies.
every day, almost every day.
Almost every day. It's, you know, if you have access to viral videos, you see it almost every day. But then it leads to smash and grab robberies. It leads to home invasion robberies. There was an article today in the LA Times about the fact that 17 gangs are working in 3 to 5 man squads, going around and, you know, following people home, following people out of nightclubs and stealing their stuff. It's gotten very violent. They use weapons, and it's led people. And I'm not just talking about Republicans, because I'm running as a Republican.
We will touch this
We'll
issue
get to
later.
that in a second. But it's caused everyone, all Californians, to be fed up, afraid, and frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
So God forbid you should go ahead and wear a watch or carry a purse, or in any way show that, you know, show possessions
Right.
outside your own home. That's his advice. I'd much rather have advice telling me how he's going to prosecute criminals, how if they actually get arrested, he's not going to let them out the back door. They come in the front door, he lets them out the back door
Yeah.
with no bail, you know, on the same day very often. And
Could
how,
be several times during a day. We saw these cases here.
I'm telling you, it's you know, very recently people have been arrested, and police are very frustrated because they go through the whole investigation,
Mm-hmm.
put in, you know, dozens or hundreds of hours to catch people, bring them to finally arrest them, believe they have the right person, bring them to court, and the DA lets them out with no bail.
When you say
you know,
DA, I'm sorry for interrupting
Certainly.
you. You're talking about deputy of DA or just
no,
DA?
I'm saying the deputy, the
Deputy
lawyer-
tried to do something, right?
The deputies in the court
Right.
have been incredibly angry at their leader, George Gascon. So much so that there was a recent vote of over 800 deputies on whether or not Gascon should be recalled, and 97.8% of those deputies voted to recall him. You can't usually get anyone to agree to 97.8% of anything. But they were willing to agree to support the recall of their boss. That's both shocking, frightening, and unique.
You know, I had the conversation before with LA County Sheriff Alex Villeneuve, and I knew Jackie Lace before, and it was different type of DA, and frustration that Sheriff Department experience now with DA. It's never happened before. They even don't communicate.
I mean, it's almost worse than that. There was a recent case that I'm sure you're aware of, where an off-duty LAPD officer got killed by 4 gang members.
Yeah, I heard.
And rather than bring the case to its natural home, which is the DA's office, Sheriff Villanueva and LAPD Police Chief Michael Moore decided to bring the case to the feds, the U.S. Attorney's Office, which is a huge slap in the face to Gascon.
But at least they expect something.
Well, what happened is Gascon said he has a policy that he will, no matter how bad the criminal is, he will never bring a enhancement for guns, and guns were used in that case, or gangs, and they were all member of a gang,
Right.
which meant that those particular murderers, if they got convicted in state court, could have gotten out, you know, somewhat between 10 and 12 years of serving time. So they bring the case to the feds because they have life without the possibility of parole as one of the options for the judge. And they thought, look, we're not going to allow the memory of this slain LAPD officer to not receive proper justice. And that's a shocking result. And let me tell you something that's very important for you and your listeners to understand. The state attorney general is the chief law enforcement officer of the entire state, can come into any one of the 58 counties, including Los Angeles, and take over a prosecution if he believes...
Any case?
Any case. Mm-hmm. If he believes that the prosecutor is not doing his job. If I am the attorney general and Sheriff Villanueva, even though he's a Democrat, is supporting and endorsing my candidacy over the current Democrat, which is a big deal. I'm the only statewide Republican that he is endorsing. And he's doing that because I told Sheriff Villanueva that if we ever have another slaying of a LAPD officer, a murder of an LAPD officer, that he doesn't have to go to the feds. That if the DA of Los Angeles isn't going to do his job, I would come in as the California Attorney General and take the case. He was very thankful.
We have to go to the party line. And,
certainly.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So, you're Republican?
I am.
I'm not, yeah. And my natural question is because in this state, in this Democratic state, I'm not talking about even Los Angeles, it's real difficult for a Republican to have such a high position. And even one Republican guy running for the mayor of the city changed his party affiliation, you know whom
yes.
I'm talking. So my question is, are you going to run as a Republican, independent? I know it's not partisan.
It is partisan.
It's partisan.
Yeah, unlike the mayor race where he doesn't run with a party designation,
Mm-hmm.
statewide races will have on the ballot it says party preference, and you answer Democrat, Republican, or the answer is no.
How about green?
Or green. You could do green. There's probably a dozen or more political
colors,
parties you can choose from. Those are the major ones.
So you're not going to change your
No.
party affiliation?
See, here's the deal with why I'm running as a Republican. When it comes to safety and security, Republicans in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s won the California Attorney General position because they focused on promoting people's safety and security. In fact, safety and security was associated with Republicans. You're willing to take a look at a ballot and not just look at what party someone's part of, but look at the actual person and what they actually can do. And that's where I tell voters that I will bring my 30 plus years of criminal justice experience, my 20 plus years of civil and appellate experience, my experience as the president of the LA City Ethics Commission, my work for victims as a victims advocate. I will bring all that experience to bear with solutions that partner with the police rather than treat them as our enemy, which seek to fund the police rather than to defund them, and focus on the key priority crimes that we're dealing with: violent and street crimes, homelessness, fentanyl poisonings, human trafficking, and make those the priorities of the office.
And the federal government knows about this?
They absolutely. This is in the DEA's website.
Right. So what?
The federal government's doing as good a job as they can to try and get this out, but what is the state of California
that's my
doing?
question, yeah.
It's a great question, and the answer is virtually nothing. You don't hear the California...
So they don't appreciate, they don't know what's going on?
They have to know. They would be beyond ignorant if they don't. And I don't believe they're beyond ignorant. They just don't prioritize. And when I see a situation that on average will kill 17 Californians every day this year, for over 5,000 Californian deaths, many of which are preventable, in my mind, you need to highly prioritize something like that.
And it relates to the gangs again?
Absolutely. It relates
human trafficking?
The fentanyl is actually being sold by gangs. It's being used by human traffickers to keep their victims basically.
So it's like a
addicted.
cycle, yes.
It's a complete cycle, and it's incredibly lethal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine if there was an assassin that was loose in California, and every day that assassin with a sniper rifle was killing 17 Californians. Our society would shut down until we found that assassin.
Right.
And imagine there was a team of assassins here in California that were doing it. We would shut the whole state down.
And they operate, it's organized crime, I guess.
Organized crime, every day.
Yeah.
Every single day. But because the state attorney general has given this no priority, because a lot of the state government has given this no priority. We are losing 17 Californians a day unnecessarily. And we're not just talking, we're talking about sons and daughters. Kids in their teens or their 20s are some of the primary victims. And across all lines, racial, gender, religion, political party, it's a secret assassin that is completely indifferent to any classification of its victims, other than they're willing to unknowingly take the product and die from it.
Hopefully, after this election, it would be, with you on these seats, it would be different.
I agree. If I'm able to save one life, there's an old saying that if you save one life, it's like saving the entire world. I very much believe that.
I guess it's a Jewish expression.
It is a Jewish expression. Yeah. It's an old Hasidic expression. Yeah. And and I believe it. I think that that would be a very worthy mission of the California Attorney General, one that I would absolutely adopt and accept if I became that. If I was fortunate enough to be elected to that position.
Running for these seats in Democratic state of California, being Republican, being Jewish, scare you?
Not at all. It's being a Republican, again, running for this position as a Republican, a position that voters generally associate safety and security with being Republican. Mm-hmm. I think it's actually an advantage in some lies, particularly when the opponent is so far left, which is Rob Bonta. I don't need to run to the far right. I run to the hard middle. The hard middle is where pragmatic, common sense solutions lie. It's where I believe most Californians are. And that's, as long as I can get my message out to Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, I believe that message is going to resonate. And I have two forms of evidence.
What's the rule for the primary? It should has two of the guys who has the most votes, or?
Yes, they call it a top two primary. Mm-hmm. So it's the two top vote getters from whatever party they come from. The Democrat obviously is there's no other Democrat on the ballot. There is another Republican who I have outraised probably 8-1. And as far as endorsements go, and that's sort of the other thing I was going to mention to you on why my message is reaching all political parties, because my endorsements have been bipartisan. I not only have the Republican Sheriff of Orange County, Don Barnes, but I have the Democratic Sheriff of LA County, Alex Villanueva. I have the Republican former DA of LA, Steve Cooley. Yep. But then I have the Democrat former LA DA, Jackie Lacey. I have Democrat and Republican U.S. attorneys going back from President Reagan.
So you
Bush.
Balance.
Absolutely. Because it's the only way to win in California.
Right.
If all you are is a Republican and nothing more, and you get every Republican vote, you will lose in California, just by the numbers. You have to be able to attract Democrat and independent votes along with Republican votes in order to win this state.
If you don't mind, a couple more questions.
Sure.
What message you have for our audience?
So the message I have for your audience is you need to vote. This is a very important election. If you care about your safety and security for yourself, your family, and your community, and you're looking around and thinking to yourself, this is not the California I want to live in, then you need to vote, and you need to vote for a change. My candidacy for the State Attorney General's race represents that change. And again, it's a change back to common sense.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you very much.